really glad that you guys are early birds, so I'm really grateful that you're here. My name is Meredith Achman. I'm the Southern, is it Regions or District? I'm the Southern District Director. I didn't want to make that mistake. I'm the Southern District Director for the National Board of NOW, and I'm really grateful that you're here because this is an issue that I take to heart. I've been an escort at my local clinic for the last, how long is it, Joan? 15 years?
Yeah, wow.
About 15 years. And we've faced protesters, we've faced arson attacks, we have faced the police, the off-duty police officer being pulled from the detail because of political issues, and we've faced them down and we're still standing. And so really grateful that you're here, that you're willing to fight the fight with me on the front lines. And I'm going to let my co-panelists introduce themselves.
Good morning, I'm Cindy Drabeck. I'm from Texas. I represent the Western District on the National NOW Board, and you're going to love our presentation today. I hope that after our presentation you'll be sure and take back all of the handouts. We've got scripts so that you can contact your local elected officials, exactly what you can say, whether they're leaning pro-choice or pro-life. And thank you for coming this morning.
Please don't use pro-life. We're all pro-life. Anti-choice.
Thank you. And you've got scripts there that will help you along too.
Thank you. I'm Nancy Mead. I'm from Oregon and am a director with the Pacific District. I want to welcome all of you. I sit on somewhat a different situation being from Oregon than my two co-panelists, and I'm very excited. I wanted to say it had passed, but I was told by my legislator, he texted me last night, that the most liberal, progressive, reproductive Women's Health Act is about to be passed in our legislature today. It will cover, it requires all insurance policies sold in the state to include abortion. It provides for immigrant women, documented or not documented. Medicaid women will be, the state will pick up that. We know that the federal government won't, but the state will pick up the cost of abortions for them. The only downside that just happened, but the bill wouldn't have passed otherwise, is that there is a religious exemption, and it's primarily, we have, Providence is, unfortunately, is huge in our state and provides a lot of the medical insurance, and it would not have passed because they said they were going to pull out of the state. So, but otherwise, it's the best in the nation, and I'm so excited.
The religious exemption is for providers or for insurance companies? Insurance, and Providence provides insurance.
So the company is exempt?
Providence is exempt, period. I mean, you can't force a doctor to perform an abortion if they don't want to. So they are not going to be provided within the Providence medical system.
Or that's a possibility?
But actually, the bill itself refers to insurance policies, but Providence also insures. So.
Yeah. On that point though, for instance, in Cincinnati and Ohio area, most of the hospitals are owned by the church. So what is the situation?
That's not the situation at this point. They're doing a pretty good job of expanding, but they really aren't throughout almost the state. They're very big in Portland, but they're not, certainly not the only ones, only hospitals in Portland. So, I mean, we have Oregon Health Science University, which is the university's hospital, and several other associated ones. I know I'm on the Oregon coast, and we have Samaritan, which is secular. It doesn't sound like it, but it is. So it's going to be available still statewide.
So they just don't get that insurance company or go to that hospital and you can get your abortion.
Right.
So once we cut into their pocketbook, they'll change it.
Well, and the good news is, fortunately, abortions, the number of abortions are going down, and this is good. And I don't think it affects, providing abortions or not, or choosing to have a policy or not, probably is not going to affect them very much in a real,
And
yeah.
what about the birth control pills? Are they exempt?
Oh, that's, oh, no. No, they're not exempt from that and haven't been. All insurance, for years, all insurance policies in Oregon have had to provide for contraception, so.
So before we dive into our campaign, the Mobilization for Reproductive Justice, we wanted to introduce the National Action Program. As you all know, this year in 2017, we entered into an especially challenging political arena that requires collective resistance. The National Action Program is part of NOW's contribution to that resistance. The current political reality has inspired many across the country, as Patricia Ireland was mentioning yesterday, to increase their engagement in grassroots political processes and to take part in leading the societal change in this country that this country so needs. The National Action Program is comprised of 5 campaigns: Ratify the ERA, Protect Immigrant Rights, Advancing Voter Rights, which happened yesterday morning, Mobilize the Reproductive Justice, which is us, and what is now being called End the Criminalization of Trauma. Each of these 5 campaigns provides activists with the tools and resources to mobilize and take action. Raise your hand if you've gone onto the National Action Center, onto the national website. Okay, so the resources that you're seeing in these programs throughout the day are going to be on the website as well. So make sure that you're using those resources, and of course keep in mind our names so that if you have any questions, we've been doing the homework and research, and we're happy to help you as well. We are NOW's Mobilization for Reproductive Justice Committee, and we would like to share with you an overview of NOW's work to advocate for reproductive justice. As we continue to respond to political climate and look to the future, we are excited to share this program. We hope that this presentation can offer you some insight into what we've been working on and where we hope to go in the future with all of you there. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot about that. Cindy's kept me on point for the whole process too. When NOW addresses the issue of reproductive justice in our advocacy boils down to 2 questions. Who is most impacted by threats to reproductive justice, and how can we use our voice to make birth control and abortion affordable and accessible? Unfortunately, actions taken by the current administration, who shall remain nameless, and the Republican-controlled Congress have underscored that restrictive reproductive health legislation that disproportionately affects low-income women, rural women, women of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. NOW recognizes that reproductive justice is not just a social issue, but an economic issue as well. Low-income women face multiple barriers to accessible health care services, and discriminatory laws like the Hyde Amendment only further this problem. Every woman deserves access to affordable, safe, and legal abortions and other reproductive health care when she seeks it. I'm going to repeat that because it's important. Every woman deserves access to affordable, safe, and legal abortions and other reproductive health care when she seeks it. Grassroots mobilization is truly at the heart of the National Action Program and NOW's activism. When we reflect on the National Action Program's progress in campaigns this past year, we want to recognize how the Women's March uplifted these issues, such as reproductive justice. Millions of women took a stand to uplift women's rights. Our action campaigns seek to build upon this momentum, turning protest into tangible action and results.
Before we we delve into our campaigns, we wanted to break down the reproductive justice by the numbers. Title X is a law that provides funding for comprehensive family planning services to low-income families and allows access to preventative services, contraception, and treatment for STDs. The current administration and conservative lawmakers attempt to slash resources for Planned Parenthood and other Title X healthcare providers. This will leave over 400 million without family planning care. 400 million. It disproportionately impacts the 80% of Title X patients who are now living at 150% of the federal poverty level. Annually, the ACA saves women $1.4 billion in birth control copays annually. Saving low-income women $1.4 billion. That's what our current ACA is saving us. As lawmakers attempt to repeal the ACA and retract these protections, women are at risk of losing this vital care. In addition, the, quote, current administration is attempting to expand the rollback Obamacare birth control mandate. The global gag rule stipulates that U.S. non-governmental organizations receiving U.S. family planning funding cannot inform the public on the need to make safe abortion available, provide legal abortion services, or provide advice on where to get an abortion. This devastates access to safe, legal, and affordable abortion across the world. This will result in 6.5 million unintended pregnancies, 2.1 million unsafe abortions, and 2.1 million unsafe pregnancies.
I have a question on the Title X, and the number 400 million. Where? Over the world. I thought Title X had to do only with domestic.
That's the amount of money.
Yeah. The individuals. We're talking about.
We'll check our sources, what we use as reputable sources so that we can provide the information.
Can't hear.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
We used many different sources when we were doing the research for this presentation, so we'll get you the information on the resource.
At this current point in our fight, I will take a few million swaying left or right. We've got to continue to resist and fight hard. Well, they'll triple check the numbers. I'm sure the ladies at National have been very resourceful for us. But the reality is we've got to stay strong, stay focused, and stay together. You've got to call your local legislatures. There's a script in the front desk to help you along in that phone call. We've all got to stand strong and stand powerful against what's trying to roll our way. All right. I'd like to move on to our action campaigns and our strategies to try to stand strong against the current wave in our administration. We are here to advocate for reproductive justice and be responsive to current events. The National Action Program has so far employed a three-pronged strategy. By providing action items and tools for activists, educating our members, and engaging our followers on social media, we are working to build robust campaigns that translate into action. The National Action Program provides timely and up-to-date content that inform on threats to reproductive justice and provide next steps for action. From the ACA repeal to the nomination of Neil Gorsuch, by focusing on tangible legislative asks in response to current events, the National Action Program contributes to the resistance and holds our lawmakers accountable. Through this action-centric work, we also uplift our coalition partners, inspiring our membership to take action by example. Nancy.
In our rapidly changing world, it is a challenge to find accurate, succinct, and digestible information. The National Action Program compiles and releases info briefs, resources, and information to keep you and your chapter up to date on the latest threats to reproductive justice.
Excuse me, mind if I shut that door? Okay, thank you.
Through social media, the National Action Program engages activists in real time. Now's social media platform provides an efficient form of communication, both to educate our members and inspire action. By leveraging our social media followers, the National Action Program communicates, updates, and action items with tens of thousands of feminists happen. And now, we're gonna play a little game. In line with educating our members, our activity provides space for us to learn about upcoming events in the world of reproductive justice. This interactive Jeopardy game breaks down all things reproductive justice and will outline new innovations in birth control legislation coming down the pipeline and what reproductive access looks like in your communities. To play, all you have to do is raise your hand, and we will call on you. If you get the answer correct, you get a prize tossed to you, or maybe handed to you if you're not that good at catching. The higher the cost of each question, the better the prizes. And this is Jeopardy. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
What are the 4 categories? You can't read them.
Yep. So the 4 categories, the first category is reproductive justice legislation. The second category is abortion and pop culture. The third is reproductive justice facts and activism. And the fourth is politicians said what? So. Oh,
I'll start.
okay.
I'll have abortion and pop culture for 100.
Okay. In Shonda Rhimes' hit series, her main fixer decides to get an abortion.
What's the? I don't understand what it's asking. What is it asking?
You have to, you have to name the series.
Oh, the series.
Yes.
I have no idea.
Yep.
What? Phone a friend. Can I phone a friend?
I heard Grey's Anatomy, that's not the one.
Nope. Okay.
Was that?
Scandal. It was an awesome
Okay, so who's next?
You have a question? No, I want to go next.
Well, the winner is supposed to pick the next one.
Oh, you're right, that's on
I
our
watched it.
Thank you. Reproductive facts
reproductive facts and activism for how much?
and 100.
100?
Do I have to answer?
No. These laws require that abortions be performed in unnecessarily complicated and expensive facilities in order to restrict access to reproductive health care.
Which?
Trap laws.
Excellent. Yeah, trap laws. Did everyone hear the answer?
Yeah.
Trap laws.
Okay, if you pick the next category.
Politician said what?
This politician said there has to be some form of punishment on women who choose to have abortions. Oh wow, all hands went up. Who raised their hand first? I didn't see. Who? You. Oh, in the back.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah. If Planned Parenthood wants to be involved in providing counseling services and HIV testing, they ought not to be in the business of providing abortions, end quote. Oh.
Sounds like Ted.
Oh, I really, somebody, you just said it. Well, because I read it.
I changed it, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry.
You can share. You are accepted.
And you get to choose next.
And you can choose
Thank you. Oh, all right. Well, this is a great category. Politicians say what?
For 300? Okay. According to Rep. David Eastman from Alaska, one of the perks of getting an abortion is, it's pretty horrible, guys. Just letting you know.
Getting to go on vacation to the big city.
Free travel. You have individuals who are in villages and are glad to be pregnant, so that they can have an abortion because there's a free trip to Anchorage.
All right.
What was that guy's name?
I don't know, but definitely don't want to go on vacation.
Oh, I can't read. Someone pick one for me.
Get ready.
I can't read it all. Go ahead, pick one.
Me?
Yeah.
Politician said what, 400?
Popular category.
This GOP presidential candidate said, quote, "We shouldn't be sending $500 million of taxpayer money to funding an ongoing criminal enterprise, Planned Parenthood," end quote.
Texas is close, but one more try.
She had Cruz, you got it.
Yes, it's my state of Texas. Ted Cruz.
Oh, I hate his face.
Finish up the category, all right. This former GOP presidential candidate and famous political name said, quote, "I'm not sure we need $500 million for women's health issues," end quote.
That's Florida, but keep trying. Jeb Bush. Texas.
Okay. And you get to pick the next category?
Next category. Mary.
Well, let's go and try this repo legislation 100.
Okay. This federal bill allows for federal funds to contribute to abortion costs, effectively circumventing the Hyde Amendment.
That's not a bill.
Yes.
What is each women at?
More information there too.
He gets it double right.
It has not passed. No.
Abortion and pop culture for 400.
Set in the 1950s, this show explores Jones... Sorry, typo.
Mad Men.
Oh, wow. We didn't need the rest of it. Yeah. Oh, okay. The show explores Jones' decision on whether or not to have an abortion.
Now Mad Men.
Yeah.
Phrase in the form of question.
Congratulations, you bet.
Let's say that everybody
Oh, I
has to
get to
wait
pick, okay.
until the question is asked, and then we'll find a hand, because, that's not really fair to reach out.
Well, let's go with abortion and pop culture for 300.
Okay. In this movie, Baby pays for Johnny's dance partner to have an illegal abortion. The movie also highlights the danger of abortion before Roe v. Wade.
Over here. Me. What is sturdy dance?
Everybody puts baby in the corner.
Yeah.
Oh.
Pop culture for 500.
This show outlined the experience of a 47-year-old grandmother with a dilemma, an unexpected pregnancy. It was 1972, the year before Roe v. Wade made abortion the law of the land.
In the back. Philomena? What was it? Philomena? No. In the back over here. Grandma. What was it? Grandma? No. Keep trying. Getting close. Was it law? It was law.
Let's try finish the abortion in pop culture.
Okay. In this television show, the president's wife opens up about an abortion she had undergone earlier in life.
Right here. West Wing. No.
House of Cards.
Yes.
Yay!
Oh, House of Cards.
There you are.
House of Cards. That's one.
You get to pick the next category. What would you like to pick?
We'll figure you don't worry.
What am I supposed to do now?
Pick a category.
I pick, reprofacts and activism.
For how much?
200.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
This march included over 3 million women who marched in part for reproductive justice.
Kathy. Let's march on Washington. That's one. This
No?
Kathy, pick a
I'm sorry. 300 in that category.
Based off the popular novel by Margaret Atwood, these protesters dressed in what costumes to protest anti-choice legislation? The Handmaid's Tale.
The Handmaid's.
Yeah, so it's
Pick a category.
totally in the question straight on.
In 2004, Now leaders were integral in planning this march in Washington, D.C.
There's a handout.
I am.
Oh, you. The women's march on Washington.
That's the one I get to. Isn't it March for Our Lives or March for
Yes, yes, that's it.
March for Women's Lives.
Yeah.
There you go, 500. And we have a shirt from that march right here.
Same category?
This new innovation in abortion allows for abortions to be conducted remotely without going to a clinic, an abortion clinic.
What is telemedicine?
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah,
Consultation.
known as teleabortion.
Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Could you tell us what that is?
Joan, can you explain that a little?
They want.
Joan, can you explain this a little?
Yeah, can you tell us what it is?
You probably do it when the game is over.
All right.
This is after we do later.
Oh, okay.
Repro legislation for 500.
Yay.
This legislation allows insurers to treat sexual assault, domestic violence, postpartum depression, pregnancy, and cesarean sections or C-sections as pre-existing conditions.
The Senate health care bill.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's changing names, so yeah. This far-right GOP caucus fought to make the, sorry for the typo, the AHCA even worse for women. Oh. It was, Laura? Laura.
Freedom Caucus, not freedom at all, actually. There you go.
Laura?
I was just excited about my 300.
Which rule stipulates that non-US governmental orgs cannot receive funding if they provide information about or access to abortion?
No. Over here.
Yeah, it is. Local gag rule.
Global gag rule.
Got cut off funding.
One category left.
There's only one left.
Oh, okay, yeah, the last one.
Because of this healthcare law, 55 million women now have access to preventative care without co-pays or deductibles. Yeah, it's. Yay! It's 55 million, but it's the ACA.
So, nice job.
You almost.
Like, okay.
Do you want to put Yeah, Joan? Joan, do you want to come up and... Do you want to come up and explain teleconsulting? This is Dr. Joan Wakovitz.
Hey, yeah. So we in Florida, to us in Florida, this is science fiction, but it's being implemented in California, New York, and other progressive states. The stage of pregnancy is diagnosed either on the basis of an ultrasound done in the woman's hometown, a physical examination done by the woman's own doctor, and then the abortion provider receives the result of the pregnancy staging electronically, and electronically prescribes the RU486, which is now known as mifepristone and misoprostol, which lead to an extremely safe in-home abortion up to 10 weeks, and usually within 48 hours. And the woman will receive her support services locally. So it requires a collaboration between the local healthcare provider and the provider of the abortion.
Thank you very much, Joan. And Joan also happens to be a, Dr. Wakovitz also happens to be a provider as well. I just want to take a second. Joan's the reason that she's one of the reasons that I started escorting in the first place. She recruited me 15 years ago. So, okay, so Nancy, you're up.
Thus far, the National Action Program has centered our reproductive justice campaigns as a reaction to current events. This is both by design and a result of intense political action to limit reproductive rights. From February to April, National Now staged a campaign to protest the appointment of Neil Gorsuch. Although we were not successful in blocking Gorsuch's nomination and subsequent appointment, our effort increased mobilization and awareness around his horrendous record. With this campaign now brought to light how Gorsuch's seat on the Supreme Court will be detrimental to women's rights, and mobilized our activists for the long road. Now we'll continue to push back on decisions that hurt women and families during his lifetime appointment.
Throughout the first half of 2017, now along with millions of coalitions and activists worked to ensure the maintenance of the Affordable Care Act and the failure of the Affordable Health Care Act, which is not affordable or health care. 9.5 million previously uninsured women have gained health coverage through the Affordable Care Act, and 55 million now have access to vital preventative care without copays or deductibles Though we won the first round, conservative lawmakers introduced an amendment to the Affordable Health Care Act that makes this damaging piece of legislation even worse. On May 5th, the amended act, or Trump Care, the only time you'll hear me say his name, passed in the House of Representatives. We won the first round of the ACA Repeal Act, and we can do it again. As we gear up for the next vote in the Senate, now we'll continue to advocate for these women and fight to save the Affordable Care Act and access to reproductive health.
We cannot overstate the importance of one of our strongest allies and the largest provider of women's reproductive health care, Planned Parenthood. In both state legislatures and Congress, conservative lawmakers have attempted to defund Planned Parenthood using the federal budget appropriations process and backhanded political channels. These channels include a law that allows states to block funding for Title X family planning clinics and make the Hyde Amendment permanent law. This is a battle we will continue to fight for the foreseeable future. Now we'll continue to organize around the issues and hold GOP lawmakers accountable for attempts to defund Planned Parenthood. Again, let me share that we have scripts at the front. Please take them with you.
You know what's really sad? We used to have some Republicans in our, I don't know, is there anyone left?
Yeah, there's at least, there's one or two women in the Senate that are Republican women who are opposing, and apparently probably will not vote for.
According to this, there's 20 Republicans who voted against the ACA.
And that was in the House. Oh. Yeah, and I think in the Senate, and you were asking about,
And then in that now, we used to have a few Republicans. We used to have Republican women. Republican women, yeah. I don't know.
We have a resolution, and copies of it are available in the back for all of you if you haven't picked them up. I'm not going to read over all the whereases, but I am going to read over the therefore be it resolves. Therefore be it resolved that now will include in its 2017-2018 National Action Program a campaign to mobilize for reproductive justice, to stop the repeal of the ACA and demand improvements, ensure Medicaid patients access to Planned Parenthood and other clinics that provide comprehensive reproductive care, including abortion, and pass legislation that would expand women's access to the full range of reproductive health services, such as the Each Woman Act, the Women's Health Protection Act, the Access to Birth Control Act, and others. And be it further resolved that this campaign will include mobilizing now leaders, members, and activists to be in constant contact with their members of Congress through phone calls, letters, emails, attendance at town hall meetings, and face-to-face meetings with their members of Congress, educating voters on how each member of Congress voted on the bill to repeal the ACA, and raising awareness of the stakes for women in the 2018 midterm elections, And be it finally resolved that now urges NowPAC to recruit, endorse, and work to elect progressive feminist candidates, especially women of color, who will make it to the top priority to address the economic, racial, and social justice aspects of women's access to reproductive health care. And you're all going to be asked to vote on this tomorrow. Yes?
When our NOW organization reformed under the energy of today's issues, what I observed was a lot of goodwill, a lot of anger, a lot of lack of knowledge, so that people were approaching each bill as though it were worthy of fighting. And as I did research on this, I immediately ran into narrow, rewire, the program that you're doing. And what we are missing, and I don't hear it in the proposal, and I would like to say that it needs to be stated at some way as either an educational function, but when I listen to the way that they developed their program together with multidisciplinary team to approach how they would take their the law to the Supreme Court, they developed the logic of the legal thinking so that for the first time it became very clear what we are fighting and who we are fighting. And we can't be redoing the wheel. That is already an awareness that we should be perpetuating among each other. So we start at the top. What is the legal thinking? What is our right? What is violated here? It then went into how do you pinpoint the people that you are going to go after? And what I heard over and over from the young women, who I assume we have a mentoring role with, is, I could never get to that man. He'd never change his mind. And I said, oh yes, you can. But you have to get the data. You have to get the false science. You have to get the fake science. And you need to take that with the law and who asked you to sponsor it and who wrote that bill that is false, which is the cottage industry. And you have to go in and you have to say, you are going to listen to me. I don't want to hear a thing in the paper that says, I am passionate about the pain of the unborn child, which is all wrong, okay? And in Texas, there's a group that got women together to do a huge reactionary conference with medical people about what is true knowledge, so that we don't have to be emotionally processing and reacting to this. That's a waste of time. So I would like to propose that national, in some way, link with what has already been done. I found out they have briefs, hundreds of briefs that are readable. We just need access to them. They're already online, but we need a person who will be responsible for saying, there's a brief on this issue. This organization is probably only one model, but it is a model that is fantastic. Then they have their arguer, and we have legal people locally, and we have medical people locally that can help us sort this. So again, don't waste time. And they had an education person who, I think it was educational, but they worked with the redistribution of this information, pulling it in and pulling it out. And this is the man that was able to say, these are the briefs we need. We need a sociological perspective. We need a medical perspective. We need to know what Kennedy's thinking in his own language. That was brilliant. And that model is so profoundly developed, we need to take that up and apply it. Not just say we're going to do these things.
Can you see us afterwards so we can talk more about the actual model? Perhaps we'll be able to put it on the... What's his name? What's your name?
My name is Scott Rusgate. I work at the Center for Reproductive Rights, and we have a website, but we work with NOW, and absolutely happy. We'll speak with folks here afterwards and make sure we can do everything we can to disseminate knowledge and give people the information they need.
And it is the one single legitimately clear and precise and true website that I have found that will give you the stuff. And it says, here's the thing, read more.
Okay.
Or not. Digest.
Yeah. That's fantastic. The only thing that I heard that I didn't like what you said was, I heard you say that people automatically assume that they're not going to be able to change people's minds. I want to raise your hand if you've, raise your hand if you've, raise your hand if you've approached a Republican to ask them to support a bill. Okay, good. Okay, hands down. If we don't, so for those of you who might not have raised your hand or who might be shy about going up to a Republican, even if you know where they stand on the issue, if we don't ask, we get nothing.
Can I make a comment? Rubio, he's a total waste. I'll send him my issues, and all I get back is a pat response.
I went to his office.
Yeah, well, whatever, he's very ineffective, I'm sorry, I have to say that.
And I'm going to agree with you completely. The reason I emphasize a phone call, it must be logged into their office as a constituent. Again, I emphasize face-to-face always is premium. When at all possible, when you walk into their offices, as soon as you walk in, you'll see a sign-in sheet. Do sign in because all visits are logged in. You are a constituent. You have a right to have your voice heard. Stay strong.
Can I also say, I think we have to be very careful on the language we use. Now, I heard the term unborn child. I know that's the term that they use. However, it is a fetus, and we really need to be very clear about that they are anti-choice, they are not pro-life. I mean, you know, we have to be sure that the language we use is what we mean to say.
Yes.
Meredith, I have a concern with particularly young women who think that this is our only cause, and they're tired of hearing about it. I don't know exactly how to make them understand how important this is for their lives.
Well, I mean, at the beginning of this program, I read off all 5 of the action programs that we're working on. This isn't the only one. This is the only one that the 3 of us worked on for this program.
I understand that. I'm just saying that in day-to-day conversations, I don't want to hear about what it was like before Roe v. Wade. I get some of this real narrow thinking, and I'm not sure how to take the next step and open their minds to.
Give me their name and telephone number and I'll take care of it from there. Yes, Dr. Joan.
So, I think we're on to the resolution now, am I right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I want to.
Thank you.
I've been remiss as a NOW member until I went to the June 11th March for Equality in Washington, which was the LGBT political march. And it became apparent to me that we should put pre-exposure and post-exposure prophylaxis for HIV/AIDS into all of our reproductive rights work. What folks in this room probably don't know is there's a pill that someone with multiple sexual partners can take every day, which will keep them from getting HIV/AIDS. There is a pill that people who accidentally are exposed to a sexual partner at high risk of HIV/AIDS can take after the exposure that will prevent them from getting HIV/AIDS. That pill is now covered by Medicare and has been for 2 years. Anyone who loses Medicaid, also, it should be covered by Medicare drug plans, but Medicaid. So anyone who loses Medicaid will lose the option to take this pill. Now, folks, the reason that many people have not taken this pill is there's no publicity, so many people don't know they have the option. This is a worthy goal of NOW's reproductive rights work. And I know we say reproductive instead of sexual and reproductive because sex is a trigger for some people, okay, like legislators. But we should include PrEP and post-exposure.
Actually, this committee used to be called the Abortion, Birth Control, and Contraception Committee. Right. So this is where we've come down to. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's an issue because the biggest the most growing populations of people who contract HIV/AIDS are heterosexual black women, bisexual and gay black men, and trans women of all races. What I would suggest is that it just be added to the whereases.
I wholeheartedly support this. Let me just explain really quickly about the process. So the board
As
has,
Mary says, and the villages.
yes, that's it. So we've already, as a board, we've already voted on this to bring this to the conference. So on Sunday, if you would present that, we will take that as, right. So Nancy, you okay with that too?
Yeah, oh
Okay,
yeah.
great. So the committee will accept that as as an addition. And you might want to write it up ahead of time so that way you don't have to worry about them asking for it at the moment. And I'm hoping that everybody else will support this as well.
And this is, if you have, and also the woman back there's a way to amend this, probably in the whereas, it sounded like to me, but write it up and give it to us, and we can look at it on, and it can be presented on Sunday. You have that opportunity to stand up and say, I support this, but I want to amend it.
Yes.
So I assume that there will be a detailed strategy developed that will include a lot of the things the woman was talking about.
That's
And I
my
did go
question.
to Scott's workshop, which was
That is my
excellent
question.
about the resources. But one of the things I want to point out, Marco Rubio, and I live in Florida, and I call him and I email him and I send him letters because I don't want him to ever be able to say he hasn't heard from us.
Right.
But one of the things, if you follow him on Facebook, he loves to quote biblical verses. So my husband, who was a Bible-filled baby in Tennessee, knows the Bible from all that. And I have him working on finding biblical quotes that go on our side. And I think we've got to be smart about how we approach these guys who hold themselves up to be holier than thou. To say, there's a lot of things in the Bible about taking care of everybody. And we need to put that up against what he's doing.
We need to embrace the moral imperative. We have that. We have that on our
Right over here.
Yes, I'm Ray Malcolm, Tennessee. The Religious Coalition for Reproductive Justice website has a lot of good information on biblical quotes and the arguments pro and con and how to counter the other side's arguments. Check that site out. The Bible doesn't mention about abortion, and the Bible is pro-choice.
What is that saying?
The Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice.
rcrc.org. Becoming extremely active, and we need to be aware of that. We need to be upfront.
Yeah, it's something that I think is really important to note because we make assumptions that there are certain demographics of people who don't necessarily support us, and there are groups, Catholics for Choice, and say the name of the group again.
Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice, and most of the mainline Protestant churches are a member of that, including Jewish organizations, other religious groups. Catholics for Choice is a member, and there are different other groups that.
Right. So I don't make assumptions. We have time for one more comment.
Years ago, Bill Baird, who did Baird versus Eisenstadt, produced a 40 or 50 page thing, which I have a copy of. All of the religious Bible quotes and things and what they were, and of course he was obviously pro-choice.
Yes, sorry. One more person. Yes.
Yeah, hi, Cindy Jakewood, Miami, running for mayor, not a Democrat, not as Republican, as a socialist. Thank you. I just want to make one general observation. The finally resolved little summary of the proposal is what we've been doing now, is what NOW has been doing for, it's almost 50 years since it's, okay. We have been doing this and it is failing. I'm sorry, let's look at what has happened to our rights across the country with this perspective. I'm not saying that if we just have a lot more marches, we win. It's not just that. We are trying to work within the two-party system, and it's subordinating women's rights to getting usually a Democrat elected. We did this during the ERA campaign. How many meetings did we have where we were told, don't talk about abortion, we're going to get the ERA, so don't embarrass that candidate that we support. We all know this happened. Obama told us to make common ground with the opponents of abortion. Make common ground. How do you do that? You cannot do that. Okay, I just want to raise, this is where we are. We're talking about, this is the most important right that we're fighting for as women. And look where we are, nearly 50 years. I submit that we need a different perspective. We need an independent women's movement again. We do not have one. It is tied to the Democratic Party. And I want to say one final thing, which is I'm very concerned about the witch hunt against Republicans, against Trump. That's why I call it, it's a witch hunt. It's based on trying to reverse something that's happened. He was elected. But who's really being blamed is workers, men and women, and not just Caucasians. Because I meet many Latinos who voted for Trump, blacks who voted for Trump. Workers, they are being blamed for this, and the lie that they are anti-woman, homophobic, racist, is being spread. I talk to these workers every day. In my workplace, I go door to door.
I don't want to be disrespectful, but I don't know that this is necessarily part of the reproductive justice part. I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are you suggesting that we don't continue this resolve?
This is the wrong strategy. Yes, that's what
What
I'm
you're
saying.
talking about is something different than what we're talking about.
Okay.
These are the things that are our values. These are the things we're going to fight for. What you're talking about is the strategy that we employ on the street, that the strategy that we do that would advance this. And
Okay.
so the strategies are something separate from what from what we're presenting to you. These are our values, and I have no intention of lowering my values or my standards because a politician doesn't want to vote for it.
Okay, let me just finish by saying it is dangerous for now to be involved in a campaign which in reality is against workers in this country who voted against Trump. This is a great danger.
Okay, that's outside of the realm of what this. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that's outside of the realm of what we're working on here. But thank you very much for your comments. I want to thank you all so much for being here and for being so conscientious about this issue. This is something that we find that obviously we're incredibly passionate about. That's why we've worked on this committee, and I want to sincerely thank my my cohorts in the fight here. Nancy and Cindy have been amazing. And have a great day.